Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? All right, doing a video on Vietnam Dong. It's been a little while. You know, people ask me a lot of questions about which currency do I think is going to go first. You know, it's hard to say. There's a couple of things to take in consideration. Vietnam is nowhere like where Iraq is. Their currency is actually more depreciated than Iraqi dinar, but Vietnam is already an active member of the World Trade Organization. There is no real restrictions on Vietnam from the United States. Their economy is booming. They've grown a lot just over the last 1.5 decades. So really, there's just a couple of things that Vietnam could do to help increase the value of their currency. And they have to want to do it. So let's go ahead and get into this. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel. And I certainly do appreciate it. So things to take in consideration and keep in mind. So as of early to mid 2025, the exchange rate between the Vietnam Dong and the US dollar is significantly higher than 1-to-1. So what I was trying to figure out and do my research on was, what does it take to help Vietnam's currency hit an exchange rate of 1-to-1? With the rates reported around 24,000 Vietnam Dong to 26,000 per US dollar. So there are several factors contributing to this difference. Rooted in the fundamental economic conditions of Vietnam's relative to the United States, one key concept is the purchasing power parity. A purchasing power parity is when they take a basket of goods, normal things that people shop for. I'm just oversimplifying, but hair, shampoo, toothpaste, stuff like that anyways. What they do is they make a comparison. How much purchasing power does the United States dollar have in Vietnam versus the Vietnam Dong? How many more things can the United States dollar buy more than Vietnam Dong? And they make comparisons like that. That's called the purchasing power parity. That's oversimplified, but you get an idea. While the GDP nominal measure economic output at current market prices, GDP PPP shows a difference in purchasing power between countries. In Vietnam, the GDP PPP is approximately 3 times higher than the GDP nominal, which means that the purchasing power of $1 US within Vietnam is roughly 3 times higher than its purchasing power within the United States. This disparity in the cost of goods and services between the two countries is a major reason why the market exchange rate is not close to 1-to-1. Vietnamese dong has been under pressure and has depreciated against US dollar due to various factors, including high demand for the US dollar from the state treasury to pay foreign debts, the strengthening of the US dollar globally, potential delays in US Federal Reserve's interest rate cuts, geopolitical conflicts, and potential US tariffs on Vietnamese goods. We already know there's a tariff war going on. Actually, Vietnam was one of the first people to get to the table and negotiate with Trump, so that shouldn't be a problem. And even Trump's frustrated with our Federal Reserve not cutting the interest rates. Other countries want the United States to cut their interest rate because it helps other foreign countries out. Geopolitical conflicts, that's something that Trump is trying to squash right now. The quicker we get over those, the better we can all get back on track. Vietnam has made significant strides in economic development over the past few decades, transforming from one of the world's poorest countries to a middle-income economy. A key aspect of this growth is the GDP capita purchasing power parity measure, which allows for a more accurate comparison of incomes across countries. As of 2023, Vietnam's GDP per capita in the PPP was approximately $13,492. This represents a substantial increase from, check this out, $7,889 back in 2010. So 15 years later, they've almost doubled. In comparison, the world average GDP per capita PPP is 26,826, which means they're about halfway there. So there has been growth in Vietnam, which strengthens their currency. That's what you want to see, but it needs to continue. To close the GDP PPP gap against the US dollar, Vietnam needs to focus on substantial economic growth, driven by productivity increases, investment in human capital. That's when you want your population to get more job experience, more education about a job, those types of things. The structural reforms, which is already happening, the country's economic growth has been impressive, with real GDP per capita soaring from less than $700 in 1986 to almost $4,500 in 2023. That's a huge jump. So what we need to look for, because that's the thing out there. People just read the news and they don't tell you what you need to look for, okay? We spoke about this earlier. Several strategies to help Vietnam close that gap and get closer to a 1-to-1 rate. Investment in human capital. Improving education and healthcare outcomes will enhance productivity and competitiveness. Infrastructure development. Upgrading infrastructure will support businesses, improve connectivity, and increase access to services. So stuff like infrastructure, your roads, your highways, your bridges. Innovation and technology. Encouraging innovation, research and development, and technological adoption will drive productivity growth. Trade and investment. Expanding trade relations, attracting foreign investment, so the FDI is what they're talking about, and promoting domestic entrepreneurship will contribute to the economic growth. And more importantly, end the corruption at a government level, which is for just about everybody. We've been watching this for a while now. Look at this. Ho Chi Minh City secures a $6 billion deal for green energy, oil refinery projects. The deal encompasses $5 billion oil refinery and storage complex and a $1 billion green manufacturing plant. So it says a landmark $6 billion by the U.S. investment agreement was signed in Ho Chi Minh City on May the 19th, uniting Vietnam's Koji Group, Japan's Mazda Oil Corporation, and several Middle Eastern conglomerates in an effort to bolster green industrial production and energy infrastructure in southern Vietnam. The deal encompasses two major projects in Ho Chi Minh City. The first, a $5 billion oil refinery and storage complex, which is interesting. The largest of its kind in Southeast Asia, will have an annual processing capacity of 50 million tons. You know, I'm wondering why the hell they need to do a refinery and a storage over in Vietnam. And then I thought about how close Vietnam is to China. My thought is if we go to war, well, there's our fuel. We don't have to wait for it to get to us. It's right there already available. So you can see there's some huge developments taking place over in Vietnam, and the United States is involved. Here's another one. Hanoi begins construction on a bridge with the $800 million investment. So the capital's first Red River Bridge project of 2025 begins, with more major crossings to follow. So there goes your infrastructure. That's what we're looking for. On the morning of May 19th, the Hanoi People's Committee held the groundbreaking ceremony for the bridge project and its connecting roads, with a total investment of 20 billion Vietnam dong. The bridge is expected to be inaugurated in 2027. You can see this is a picture of what it's going to look like. Now that's connectivity, that's infrastructure, that's good. Top Vietnam steelmakers say local building boom will fuel growth. So these are the types of things we're looking for in Vietnam to help close that gap so they can get closer to a 1-to-1 exchange rate. So I hope that helps you guys out. I look forward to hearing from you. That's it for now. I'm out.